Hi, and welcome to Madison Pictures. We've all heard of the term focal length and the importance filmmakers attach to it. However, not enough beginner filmmakers and cinematographers fully understand just the importance of it. To get to the point I want to make, choosing the lens can make or break a shot. Before continuing, I'd like to make a statement that to me is fundamental. No art has rules, but only guidelines. In film, such rules as the rule of thirds, the three-act structure, or even the character arc can be broken and even completely ignored and still have astonishing results, such as the Grand Budapest Hotel and its symmetry in the framing, or Nightcrawler, which completely ignores the protagonist's character arc, and even Pulp Fiction, which is renowned for its book-like format and theme-based chronology. Nevertheless, these guidelines should be kept in mind as they are a good basis for any visual storytelling and tend to lower the risk of losing your audience, a mistake too many beginner filmmakers, and even in some cases advanced filmmakers, make.
What was I supposed to do?
Now we can get into the meat of the subject, which is how to find the right focal length for a shot. And to answer that question, you must first answer the question, what is the perspective? Who is the audience supposed to be following? Is it a teenager who's watching a robbery from a distance, or is it the robbers who are committing the crime? Or maybe it's the employees who are witnessing the robbery. Are you trying to use open space to show a distance between two characters, or would you like the landscape to feel claustrophobic? All these questions will lead to your lens choice. Of course, there are more components to a lens than just the focal length. The aperture, for instance, will have effect on the focus and the depth of field, as well as the light, or choosing a prime lens or a zoom lens and what the advantage is of either, but I'll go into that in another video. The focal length already has its effect on the background, and that is what we will be looking at. So what is the focal length? There are many types of lenses, with many different characteristics such as portrait lenses, wide-angle, telephoto, macro, you name it. But all these can be put into three focal length categories: long, short, and normal. Long focal lengths will be anything from 85mm to 2000mm. In this we can find the telephoto lenses, macro lenses, and portrait lenses. The normal focal length, in other words the one which corresponds to the human eye, is 50mm. However, we can add anything from 40mm to 75mm as they keep the image clean and realistic. It's also called the nifty 50 lens. Finally, short focal lengths will be anything from 35mm down to 7mm. Here we find the wide-angle lenses, and for more extreme cases, the fisheye lenses. These focal lengths have various effects and will make the cinematographer work much harder on the meaning and composition of each shot. The angle of view is one such effect, as the higher the focal length is, the narrower the angle becomes. For instance, a 50mm lens will have an angle of view of 46.8 degrees, whereas the 300mm telephoto lens will have an 8.2 angle of view. In contrast, we have the 17mm lens, which has a wide angle of view of 103.7 degrees. Now these are very important to keep in mind as they will create distortion in the image. To keep the examples above, the 50mm lens corresponds to the human eye, therefore it will not distort the image, as others will. It gives a rather realistic image, which makes it good for shooting subjects, as it gives clean and flattering results. This is good for dialogue and relationship sequences. The 300mm lens, however, will distort the image, and quite significantly, as we'll see the background, midground, and foreground crushed together, making the characters seem very 2D. This is often used to show someone is being watched from afar, such as we can see in police stakeout scenes. The 17mm lens as well distorts the image quite a lot, but in the exact opposite way. It gives a panoramic kind of view, meaning anything placed in the center of it will be extremely diluted, and therefore quite unflattering, much like a fisheye. These lenses are most commonly used for drug and alcohol use sequences, where the characters get high and hallucinate. But we can also use it in a more subtle way to evoke a dreamy-like setting, something surreal by using a 24mm lens, for instance. Having talked about the angle and the perspective, we must now talk about the camera operator's job, the framing. If the focal length is higher and therefore the frame is closer to the subject, it is obvious the camera will have to move. And this plays a big role, because long focal lengths can be used at close distances to get very close to the subject and feel almost intrusive to the spectator, or it can be a full body shot, meaning the camera is far away from the subject, showing a disconnect between the spectator and the subject. In the same way, short focal lengths can be used at far distances to exaggerate space, or very close to willingly distort the subject, as mentioned above. As I said in the beginning, I do not believe a specific lens should only be used to show a certain story element, but rather the technical knowledge should be used to craft, experiment, and play with the visual storytelling of the film. It is not only a piece of equipment that helps capture a director's idea, but a tool that a cinematographer and storyteller can use to model emotion and tone and ultimately guide the spectator through the story. Thank you for listening to this technical essay. I would love to hear what you think down in the comments. If you like this type of video or if you didn't like it, please be sure to let me know. Thank you all for watching, and good night.